All right, let's move to Italy. We've got a newly appointed British Prime Minister who's under enormous pressure after a series of train wreck interviews. In Italy, the right-wing Prime Minister, Giorgia, I think that's how you pronounce it, Giorgia Meloni anyway, has rocketed to the top and has mapped out a very conservative approach to her government. Meloni has earned the wrath of the left, though, because she was stressing a focus on family, a healthy scepticism of climate change and a push towards nuclear energy. Her fans love her detractors despise her. Watching all this unfold is Australian business and political advisor from the CT Group, Remo Nogarotto, who's in Milan tonight. Remo, thank you very much for your time. The Italian political scene is never dull, is it?
Oh, there's never a dull moment when it comes to Italian politics, Chris. That's for true and certain. And the events of the past week have simply reaffirmed that.
How has the first week gone for the new Prime Minister?
Well, she hasn't been formally sworn in as yet. That'll take a couple of weeks. Things don't move at a rapid pace in Italy. And she's in the process now of assembling her ministry. And there's a lot of attention and scrutiny being applied to who is likely to occupy her key positions within her cabinet. And I think she'll surprise many by having a mix of, let's call them technocrats, as well as more traditional political types.
Giorgia proclaimed this week that I am a woman, I am a mother, I'm Italian, I'm Christian. It got a lot of negative reaction. What's so wrong with what she had to say?
Well, I think the great irony for me, at least sitting here in Milan, Chris, is watching the left-wing media in various parts of the world, including Australia, go apoplectic at the reality that a conservative government has been elected here in Italy. The irony is that here in Italy, the left-wing media and indeed the left-wing parties refer to this as a centre-right coalition, not an extreme right government. So, it beggars belief that people are opining back home on what this government is going to look like. Sure, her rhetoric, fiery rhetoric at that, of God, homeland and family was always going to upset the more progressive elements around the world. And sure, she's a Eurosceptic and she's strong on an anti-immigration platform. I would argue, for instance, no stronger, no weaker than the borders policy we have back home. But, perhaps she's not as conservative on economic values. So, the fact that we feel compelled around the world, particularly the left-wing media, to apply tags to governments and people we don't really know is quite disappointing.
Yeah, well, I've seen reports only this afternoon about left-wing media calling her fascist and far-right. We'll see how she goes. The disappointing reality for her supporters, though, Remo, is that Italian prime ministers don't tend to stay in the job too long, do they?
No, they're at the crease a very short time, mate. Not many have hit not many have hit a half century, let alone a century. Now, in theory, this government has been elected for 5 years, and I say in theory because Italy's had 40-odd governments, I think it is, in the space of since the Second World War. So it doesn't have a magnificent track record, and it is, let's remember, a coalition of centre-right parties. So it only takes one or two of those coalition members to pull the pin because they're upset with something for the government to collapse. So she's got a huge task in front of her. She is the first female prime minister ever elected in this country. And for a traditionally conservative country, that was a big call on the part of the electorate. And she didn't get there by a paper-thin margin. She got there by a comfortable margin.
Exactly. I've got to leave it there, Remo. I've got to think about rugby league, as you know only too well. Remo Nogarotto, thank you very much for your time.